What is up, guys? Blade Angel here, back again with another just chill video with just some driving footage in the background while I discuss a topic. You guys seem to really love this style of video, and there's also a small minority that really hates it and are very vocal about it. If you don't like this, don't freaking watch it. No one's forcing you to, because there's a ton of people who do like it. Anyways, on to the video. Today we're going to talk about controversial supercars, and what I mean by that are supercars that are not universally considered supercars. So a lot of car enthusiasts massively disagree on whether or not these cars are supercars or not. Having said that, here are my 4 factors of what makes a supercar a supercar. Performance, exclusivity, like how exotic it is, and exclusiveness, I guess, style, or how extreme it is, not just, you know, a little bit of style, it has to have a lot, and luxury, and not like a cruising, boring car. What I mean by luxury is it has quality components, like stuff that's expensive, not just plastic, and you're gonna see why I labeled these 4 factors, because I'm going to use these 4 factors to determine whether or not we should consider these 5 supercars supercars. This is just my opinion. You guys may have your own opinions. Maybe I'll sway it, maybe I will not. Add it to the comment sections below. Discuss amongst each other whether or not you think these are supercars or not, or whether or not I missed one that I should have talked about. Having said that, here is the first car on this list, which is the Acura NSX. The reason I'm covering this is during the video that I made about it, the freaking Acura NSX, people were a bit upset about me calling it a supercar, and I would say this is my opinion, but I kind of think for the Acura NSX, it does get shafted a little for all the wrong reasons. So the first generation Acura NSX was designed to compete with the Ferrari 328. By the time it released, the 348 came out. It beat the 348. It was faster than it on a track, and it was basically the same from a straight line speed standpoint. So here you have a car that matches a Ferrari in straight line speed, and on top of that, also is faster than it on a track. The Ferrari 348 is widely considered a supercar, so if this car just beat a supercar, it's a supercar. Of course, that logic does not always work, because there's another car on this list that does beat a lot of supercars, and you guys already can guess it. It's probably the one in the thumbnail, but we're not going to talk about the one yet. We're going to stay with the NSX. So in regards to performance, I believe the NSX passes. In regards to exclusivity, it passes. Not a lot of NSXs were sold. Less than 9,000 of them were made for the first generation that sold in the United States. It was still pretty exotic and pretty exclusive. Exotic enough to fool a lot of people into thinking it was a Ferrari. And speaking of which, the style, because exotic and exclusivity kind of rolls into style. Yes, the NSX from a styling standpoint for first generation was gorgeous. It was beautiful, and unequivocally a lot of people called it one of Japan's greatest supercars, even to this day. And finally, luxury. Absolutely, the NSX passes because it is based on an F16 interior. The way it curves, the shape of it already wins. And on top of the shape, the material adds to it. The NSX had very good materials. I mean, it was 84 grand for MSRP back in freaking the 90s. So this wasn't a cheap car. So it wasn't coming with cheap stuff on the inside. So it passes. So why is it on this list then? Why do a lot of people not consider it a supercar then? Here's why. They are measuring it with the wrong, they call it slow. A lot of people think the NSX is slow. So again, like I said, it beat a 348 back in the 90s. And the NSX is 0 to 60, I believe, for the 1997 refresh with the 3.2 liter V6 was about 4.5 seconds for the target top. 4.5 seconds for a car made in the 90s, that's a supercar. Like, it's as if with every other factor checked off. The NSX was already exclusive, it was already stylish, it was already very luxurious. Now it's got that performance. That's a supercar. And here's the dumbest argument that I heard people say on that video. People would be like, oh, but Bladed, your Mustang is faster than the NSX, so why is your Mustang not a supercar then? And I'm like, boy, my Mustang was made in 2016. Stop. And this happens all the time when I see it on forums, when I play video games and someone brings up whether or not the NSX is a supercar. People always start comparing Mustangs and Camaros to the NSX and say, well, the modern Mustang Camaro can beat the NSX. No crap. Why are you comparing sports cars that are 20 to 25 years old, more modern, to an old retro supercar? So I would say the Acura NSX has earned retro supercar status by now. Stop measuring it by modern supercar standpoints. Of course it's going to be considered too slow. It was not slow when it was released. Just stop. Stop trying to. It frustrates the hell out of me when I see reviewers talk about it and they still complain about the first gen being too slow to be a supercar. just why are people comparing it to like modern Camaro ZL1s and stuff? That's not how it works. Time passes. Like the Ferrari F40 isn't even that fast by modern standards anymore either. I mean, a freaking Ferrari Enzo from 2002, it has almost as much horsepower as a modern Camaro ZL1. That doesn't mean the Camaro ZL1's a supercar, and that doesn't also mean that the Ferrari Enzo is not a supercar. The Ferrari Enzo keeps its status, and the Camaro is just considered a modern car that has just gotten faster because that's how time works. The second generation Acura NSX also passes the test. Performance-wise, 573 horsepower, twin-turbo V6 with 3 electric motors. As much as it sounded like I hated it in the video that I made about it, I don't hate it, I just really think Acura didn't capitalize on its potential. However, I do think it's still a supercar because it passes the performance check. It is very exclusive for all the wrong reasons because not enough people are buying them, so there aren't many of them. So it's rare for all the wrong reasons. It's rare because it's failing, but hey, that still counts as rare, therefore it's still exotic. Because aside from that, moving into style, it does look very stylish. It is a bit on the more bland and boring and muted side, but thinking back about it, it did keep, like, I never had a problem with its look because the original NSX was also a very simple car. And I think the second gen NSX, that was the only thing it did right, because if you look at the 2007 concepts when they first announced it, that was already going to be its design. And that was actually what the customers wanted who originally bought the first NSX. Like, people never had a problem with the way it looked. They were fine with that. And I am too. They just hated everything else about the NSX, like the execution. But onto luxury, it passes the luxury check too. It does have a lot of, I mean, for how expensive it is, it obviously needs to have a lot of leather. I mean, the car is a freaking space frame chassis as well as other very unique components. It did a lot of first ofs. I can't list them off the top of my head, but it was one of the first few cars that would utilize a lot of materials that were never used before by any other car. So yes, I would say the second gen NSX is without a doubt a supercar, so is the first gen one, therefore the NSX is a supercar. However, here's where things get a lot more opinionated, and here's where a lot of you guys are going to start disagreeing with me. Corvette. The base model Corvette, not a supercar. I just don't think it is. And the reason why is the C1, C2, C3, C4. The C3 Corvettes look really cool, but it was just a sports car. Like, they were fast. C4s were also really nice, especially the late gen ones. It wasn't until the C5 until things really got blurred. Because the C5 Corvette, even the base model ones, were really fast. The LS engine was no joke. There's a reason why it's one of my favorite V8s to this day. There's a reason why a lot of people love the LS engine so much, because it was a fast car. So, like I said, the NSX was considered a fast car in the 90s, so was the Corvette C5. That was like on supercar level for a car in the 90s. I believe it was also like 4.6, 4.7. It was near the NSX's range for a car that was way cheaper, and so on and so forth. So from a performance standpoint, without a doubt, even base model Corvettes pass that supercar check. However, here's where they start to fall. Exclusivity. No, I'm sorry, Corvettes are not exclusive. There are just too many of them, and a lot of people, you hear them say is they say Corvette cannot be considered a supercar just because it's too common. And a lot of people think that's a really ridiculous reason to write it off, but I do think that's important because there's a reason why it's called supercar, kind of like how there's words like superhuman as well. Like, if there's a lot of people who are superhuman, they're not superhuman anymore. They create a new standard which will then become above average, and then a super. Basically, if super becomes too common, you have to redefine super. I'm going to butcher the phrase, I'm just going to paraphrase it, but basically it was like, if everyone is super, then no one is. Like, you can't just throw the term around, otherwise you're going to devalue that term. The Corvette doesn't pass the exclusivity check. From a styling check, I would say from the C5 onwards, yes, they had the stance, they had the look, and they did look like supercars. And even now, especially the C7 Corvettes really do. Like, so they pass performance and they pass style, but they fail the other two, which is exclusivity and luxury. Base model Corvettes come with plastic, which is just an instant no-no. They come with so much plastic, because that's why they're cheap in the first place, and by no means am I discrediting that choice by Chevrolet, because it's a good thing that the Corvette is so affordable. If you just want performance, speed, all you care about is speed and some style, go buy a Corvette, but it's not a supercar, because it's not the most luxurious thing in the world. Now notice how I've been talking about the base model Corvette this whole time, so for the C5 Z06 and the C6 Z06 and the C7 Z06, that's when people started to say that the Z06 models might actually be a supercar. I would still I'm on the fences, because the C5 Z06, I would say not quite there. The C6 Z06 is kind of when things get, it's kind of walking on that fine line now, because it's a 7-liter LS7. Like, that V8 was freaking amazing. 505 horsepower, very powerful car. It had the looks too, and it was very beautiful. Like, the C6 generation was that much of a step from the C5, on top of it being the Z06 trim. Almost there. almost. And what really pushes me over where I would say it's a supercar is I believe that the ZR1s, the Corvette ZR1s, I believe they're supercars. And a lot of people, that's where they kind of yield to. They say, yeah, you know, Corvettes are, not all Corvettes are supercars, but the ZR1 is, because the ZR1 from the C6 generation, it passes all 4 checks. Performance, yes, it was very exclusive. Its styling was even more extreme because it had that glass window. Back when glass windows were trending, like no one likes the glass window engine bay. That's no one likes those anymore, but back then it was trending and people liked it. And then it has the luxury as well. It was very optioned out on the inside, especially when you consider its price. By no means would I ever doubt, I have no shadow of doubt that the ZR1 is a supercar, especially the modern one. It is so vastly different from a standard Corvette. Like, the whole front fascia of that car is just different from a standard C7 Corvette. It looks like a supercar. And the massive bulky hood, especially when you sit inside of it, that's like, it's got that style, it's got that extremeness, and I would absolutely, that makes it a supercar, because performance for the C7 ZR1, yes. Exclusivity, yes, they're very rare. Style, absolutely, they're very extreme looking, very beautiful. And luxury, they have only the most quality of components. Sure, it's not like quite super, like it's not like Bentley or Rolls-Royce grade, but like it's not supposed to be that type of luxury. It's supposed to be lightweight and extreme and somewhat still affordable, because I think that's the whole business model of the Corvette. I would say it did a good job of striking that balance between being a high-end sports car that's also kind of like, it brings a high-end sports car into the realm of supercar. Every other Corvette, like base model Corvettes, they're just high-end sports cars. I really don't think they're supercars. And a lot of people say that, you know, that's hypocritical. They say you can't just call a specific trim of a car a supercar. And that's another argument that a lot of people bring up. Personally, I think you can, because another car on this list I also am the same way about. And once again, let me know what you guys think in the comments, because we're just going to keep moving on here. Actually, let's move on to that other car, the Jaguar F-Type SVR, and all the other F-Types. But the reason I said SVR is it's the same case for the Corvette with me. The Jaguar, I hate saying Jaguar because Jaguar, you know, we'll call it Jag, okay? Jag. The Jag F-Type SVR, that's a supercar. You know, I'm not going to argue that. You know, the ones with the V6 supercharged, nah, not supercar, no way. My freaking Mustang GT is faster than it. Once again, from a modern standpoint, so like I was complaining about comparing my Mustang GT to an old Acura NSX, that's unfair. But a modern F-Type compared to a modern Mustang GT, it's slower. A modern F-Type V6, my bad, not other F-Types. So that just, no, I just can't think of that as a supercar from a modern standpoint. It does not pass the check. For the V8 F-Types, that's when things get iffy. Personally, I think all V8 F-Types kind of enter the realm of supercar, because they have that style, they have that performance, they have that exclusivity, because Jaguars aren't, keep saying it, I don't want to, okay, Jags have, they're more rare than Corvettes are, like, because they're pricier because of that, because they have more luxury, so they pass all 4 checks: luxury, stylish, exclusive, and performance. So yes, I would say the V8 F-Types are, but some people argue that they kind of aren't. But the one where like it stumps the argument is the SVR. The SVR, people widely consider that one is a supercar. Again, it brings up the trim arguments. Can you just consider one trim a supercar and the rest not? Which is strange, because people say that the whole car needs to pass a check, not just a trim. So personally, I'm okay with just one trim of it passing the check. Now, on to the more controversial. We're just going to keep getting more and more controversial as this gets it. The Alfa Romeo 4C. Oh no, so I put this one in my cheap supercars videos, and people were calling me a complete excuse my language, of course. I don't like using that word, but Motor Trend considers this a supercar. A lot of business outlets and car magazines and professional, like people who are professional in the car industry, because I'm just some dumb YouTuber at the end of the day. But if the professional opinion from people who are much more qualified than me call it a supercar, I'm going to take their opinion. Now, I can see why people don't think the Alfa Romeo is a supercar. I'm just going to say it right now. It's because it has a 4-banger. That is what's holding it back, because performance-wise, it is blisteringly fast. It's like, I think it's a 4.2, 0 to 60. It's fast as hell for a car that only has like barely over 200 horsepower. Like, it is impressive. And exclusivity, absolutely. It's a very exotic looking car. It's a very rare to find car, and it passes that check. From a stylistic point, yes, it passes the style check too. And finally, from a luxury standpoint, it absolutely does, because it is a carbon fiber fetish, very well designed car, very beautifully incorporated interior with quality components. Alfa Romeo did an amazing job on it. I think it's just a low-end supercar, like an entry-level supercar is what I'd call it, because I wouldn't consider, like, I can see why people would just call it a high-end sports car, or how they kind of see it as a roadster. Like, they're just like, it's just a beefed up Miata, and like, I know that 4-cylinder holds it back, and I so badly don't want to, but the only reason, personally, I guess I wouldn't say it's a supercar, but the only reason I still call it one is because, like I said, professionals in the car industry, people who are more qualified than me, they call it a supercar. They're more well-studied than I am, so if they're gonna call it a supercar, I'm gonna call it a supercar too. Like, that's just how it is. Obviously, you guys can disagree with me. You can disagree with them too, and give your reasons. Give me a reason other than the 4-banger. What do you think else is holding the Alfa Romeo back? And the final car on this list is the Porsche 911. This one suffers a similar fate the Corvette does. It's too common. The Porsche 911, performance, yes. Exclusiveness, depends on the trim. So once again, it's a trim issue. Styling, absolutely. I think the Porsches, their styling has kind of fallen on deaf ears recently because a lot of people have gotten used to them. Porsche is kind of bringing it back, don't get me wrong. Like, some of their modern cars, like the GT2 RS, I saw one in person in this video above that you should watch. They're gorgeous. Like, I love where Porsche's taking the 911 design. It's amazing. Then luxury, absolutely, it's a luxurious car, very high quality components, but more importantly, their freaking PDK transmission is a very quality component. Absolutely, it shifts beautifully, keeps that luxury vibe, but also that performance vibe. It is brutal when you want it to be brutal, but graceful when you want it to be graceful. It's the perfect everything type of automatic. And I think that makes the Porsche 911, to me, a supercar. However, like I said, the base model may not pass the check because it's probably not exclusive enough. By the time you get to the Turbo, the 911 Turbo or Turbo S, I would say it's a supercar. I'm very lenient on the Porsche. I would just, like, for the Corvette, I didn't quite consider the Z06 a supercar, but for the 911 Turbo S, just, you know, one trim up, or a few trims up, I should say. I don't know the exact trim level of it, but I consider that a supercar. By the time you get to the GT3 RS and GT2 RS, yes, they're supercars. I mean, I always see them in a ton of videos on track with Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and they keep up just fine. And they have the look too. Like, you know, I'm not just talking about they keep up from a performance standpoint. From an exotic standpoint, they're catching eyes. From a style standpoint, they are completely gorgeous. And from a luxury standpoint, they are gliding around gracefully. And that, to me, just makes it a supercar. So before we end this video, here are some honorable mentions. I just purposely put them here because they're kind of old. Maserati Merak, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. Ferrari Mondeo, I don't know how to pronounce it either, I'm freaking horrible. And Venturi Atlantique, and I do know how to pronounce that because I made a video about that one. So, of all the ones I couldn't pronounce, I pronounced the one that you guys probably have never heard of. Venturi is a French automotive manufacturer. The Atlantique was a V6 car that used a PRV engine, so Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo, and it's a good car. All three of those are in the honorable mentions because that was a debate of the past. Honestly, I still don't know if that debate was concluded because a lot of people to this day still don't really call the Maserati Merak a supercar. Having said that though, those are my thoughts for this video. Again, just my opinions, but especially for the Corvette because that's the one that a lot of people love to call the base model supercars, especially the owners. Maybe they want to make themselves feel better. I'm sorry, I just don't think the base model one is. I do think the ZR1 is. Other than that though, thank you guys for watching. This was definitely a lot of fun. I like making videos like this, and I'm glad you guys enjoy watching these videos. As always, see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.